Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Claudia Pasquero and Marco Poletto. We are co-director of Ecology Studio. I'm also a professor of landscape architecture in Innsbruck University, as well as lecturer at the Bartlett UCL. Today we will present the Deep Green. Deep Green is a project we have been developing with the United Nations Developing Program, as well as partner city, Guatemala City, Mogadishu, and Varania. We also briefly show a project we are developing for the Centre Pompidou in Paris, their fifth iteration of the exhibition, Mutation Creation. So we can start. Ubiquitous computing enable us to decipher the biosphere anthropogenic dimension, what we have called the urban sphere. This machinic perspective unveils a new post-anthropocentric reality, where the impact of artificial systems on the natural biosphere is indeed global, but their agency is no longer entirely human. This paper explores a protocol to design the urban sphere, or what we may call the urbanization of the non-human, titled Deep Green. With the development of Deep Green, Marco, myself, and our team are testing the potential to bring at the core of architectural and urban design research the interdependence of digital and biological intelligence. This is achieved by developing a new biocomputational design workflow that enables pairing what is algorithmically drawn with what is biologically grown. In other words, and in more detail, we will illustrate how GAN, Generative Adversarial Networks, algorithm can be trained to behave like a Fusarium polycephalon, a unicellular organism endowed with surprising computational ability and self-organizing behavior that have made it popular among scientists and engineers alike. The trained GAN Fusarium is deployed as an urban design technique to test the potential of polycephalon intelligence in solving problems of urban remetabolization and in computing scenarios of urban morphogenesis within a non-human conceptual framework. Here, we will illustrate an application of this approach to a real case studies with partner city Guatemala City, especially within the framework of the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, their Innovation Facility Funding, and their City Experiment Fund. The aim of this case study is to provide local communities, city and government with the most advanced toolset to reprogram global city for a safer and healthier post-pandemic world. Within the integrated use of remote sensing, big data analysis, and artificial intelligence, Deep Green can be deployed to assess urban vulnerabilities and find specific urban design and planning solutions to achieve immediate and long-lasting impact. Through these case studies, we will speculate on the possibility for a general applicability of the Deep Green protocol, its scalability, and possible widespread adoption. This speculation will also lead to a critical assessment of the current paradigm of urban green planning and the conceptual and practical significance of urban regreening in the current crisis-ridden post-anthropocentric reality, while simulating the capacity of living systems in the process of growing and become part of a new urban biodigital infrastructure. We are challenging the nature of city itself, now understood as urban sphere, which highlights its planetary scale and its inherently systemic nature. Learning how to interpret large remote sensing data set from the unique perspective granted by GAN-Fusarium enables a deeper inquiry into the contemporary significance of traditional planning concepts such as zone, boundary, scale, typology, and program.
So, what you've seen up until now, it's a little journey through the protocol that powers the Ganfisarum. And effectively, here we have represented it into a virtual room where each layer of this data stack is effectively represented in 3 dimensions. So we are not only essentially experiencing the data through the eyes of the Ganfisarum, of the artificial intelligence itself, but also we are able to immerse ourselves into this datascape. Therefore, using our cognitive abilities at pattern recognition and at correlating different processes taking place in the city. And especially in the case of Guatemala City, you are seeing now in the kind of friction that is occurring between urban infrastructures, especially waste infrastructure, with the water networks and the ground, the biotic layer underpinning the city itself.
The virtual room that you see here is currently available as part of the UNDP Innovation Day, and you could visit and start to interact with the data, in this case data of Guatemala City, in real time. This process introduces new spatial metrics to measure city self-sufficiency, valuing what economists call externality toward other societal and ecological systems. A specific biocomputational design workflow generates consistent training data set for Ganfisarium, and this paper illustrates our effort in that regard. The workflow includes 4 main levels of computation: input data reading, abiotic analysis, network analysis, and finally scenario modeling. And we are now going through this layer in real time. In the first level analysis, advanced algorithmic techniques are used in order to read large datasets from satellite, GIS, and digital elevation model sources. Level 2 and 3 recognize and analyze the morphology of the city, the surrounding landscape, and the resources networks that you see here. The analysis produces density map and path system for several urban systems such as biomass, water collection, solar energy, community waste, and so on. The maps become training data set for the Ganfisarium.
So we just dived through these layers, which Claudia was describing, and we have reached now the biomass analysis. I think this is a quite important layer of the deep green algorithm, because it's where we begin to recognize the network-like capabilities of the living substratum of the city. And in this way, we are able to correlate in a much more specific way infrastructural functions and biological layers. So in other words, the vegetation density, the distribution of the biotic layer of the city is analyzed as the existing, and then it's computed, it's visualized as a network, understanding the proximity and the density of links between the existing pockets. And so in this way, it becomes possible to understand where interventions could be prioritized to give robustness, to increase the robustness of the network, and also to enable new corridors, new path systems to emerge, therefore reweaving, restitching together the existing infrastructure and the biotic substratum.
We now went through the data analysis and algorithmic processes, and we will move forward up toward the application of machine learning to this algorithm. Cycle-GAN algorithms belong to the class of machine learning framework. They involve an automatic, unsupervised training of image-to-image translation models without paired example. In this case, the domain of sources image and target image refers to the slices of 2 actual input images that belong into 2 different domains, the urban and the biological. Cycle-GAN algorithms are deployed as level 4 of the overall deep green workflow, and the process can be further divided in 4 phases for clear illustration. The first phase describes the preparation of the images that are going to be used and input in the training. The second phase is the training of the algorithm based on this input dataset. The model is trained to detect the urban morphology of case study city and the biological growth pattern of Fusarium polycephalum. During the training, typically runs 200 epochs, over which it self-improves. At this stage, the models are sufficient for generating plausible slices in the target domain, but are not translation of the input slice. This occurred in the third phase, the testing phase, during which the algorithm translates the biocomputational pattern onto the case study city. In the fourth phase, all result tiles are combined and the final output image is recreated. This produces a true color satellite vision of the urban morphology testing scenario for the integration of biotic and abiotic system within the urban landscape. From the testing conducted so far, it emerged that higher resolution in the generation of analytical dataset on the case study city result in more realistic scenario modeling.
So here we almost reached the end of our journey, and as you could see in the sequence behind us, the GAN Fusarium has been deployed to essentially simulate a kind of a satellite scenario of Guatemala City and the regreening of the city, the restitching of the city, biological infrastructure. And this, of course, as Claudia was describing, emerges through the recognition of patterns in the input data, the computational data set, and the satellite monitoring, which is also in itself continuously updated. So I think we are almost at the end of our journey, and Claudia will now conclude before we end.
So, in this sense, it is known that contemporary cities share unique emergent behavior and self-organizing pattern with organisms like Fusarium polycephalum. Therefore, the deep green method has the potential to evolve into an effective urban planning model. At its core lies the potential to capture the proven intelligence of Fusarium polycephalum, emergent, distributed, and embodied, to design cities capable of searching for the opportunity of evolution within the expanded urban landscape, able to find untapped resources while minimizing the expenditure of energy required to accomplish this fundamental survival task. Deep Green is a city built by humans, for both human and non-human citizens, implying by a new form of inhuman intelligence. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Bye bye.